안녕하세요, Cloud입니다. Hey guys, Cloud here. Today I have another guest, Nero. I'll leave her Twitter in the description below, but I'm sure many of you guys know her. She's quite outspoken on Twitter. Today we talked a lot about language learning and her journey as well, but specifically we also talked about sort of the language learning environment, if I were to say, like things that almost seem like this is what the norm should be, or this is how everybody studies, this is how you should study. And we talked about our experiences with that and how did it work for us? Is this actually the way that, everybody has to learn? And I don't want to go to spoil into too much detail. It's actually quite a long interview, so you can take your time with it and whatnot. But we covered a few different topics, and one topic was about, grammar and vocabulary, and the way that you would see all these YouTube stars and, people who have thousands of followers on Twitter, this is how they do it. And, sometimes you look at that and you're like, oh, this is what I need to do in order to learn a language. And we kind of go through our experiences with it and other people and what we've heard, and we discuss that. So I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So I'll just get right into it. So enjoy. All right. Hey, Nero.
Hi.
I'm really glad to have you here. It's really an honor. And if you could just introduce yourself real quick, that would be awesome.
Sure. So my name is Nero, and I think that at least, some people are going to know me already because I'm kind of really active. I have nothing better to do, apparently. But yeah, my Twitter name is Ono, and I just talk a lot about languages.
Cool. So what languages have you studied so far?
Honestly, the list is kind of long. I always feel kind of embarrassed if I have to talk about it because I'm the kind of person that jumps from language to language because I just like dabbling. I just really like languages, and I mean, obviously right now I'm not learning 10 at the same time or something. But I'd say the ones I've studied most seriously were Spanish, French, Russian, and Japanese. Yeah. Well, I mean, also English, I guess, but I don't really count that one anymore.
Okay. And your native tongue is what?
German.
German.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, I live in Germany, Berlin. It's my native language. I used to live in the US, but even that's quite a while. That was 20. So.
Yeah, from your tweets, I thought you moved to Berlin, and so I thought that you were living in Germany, but I didn't realize you're just from there.
No, so I mean, I used to live about 3 hours from here, so I lived in a state called Lower
Oh,
Saxony,
okay.
and I moved to Berlin because just there are a lot more opportunities here, and it's just more interesting living here compared to a small village where I used to live, and I like cities, so Berlin.
Okay, that makes sense. You were from Germany, you just moved to a different city.
Yes, exactly.
That's cool. What was your first language besides English? Because I think you learned English in Germany, right?
Yeah, of course. We kind of, I mean, I think all European countries are like that, but you start English pretty early on in school, and then after that, I had to choose between French and Latin, so I had half a year of Latin school and half a year of French, and then I had to choose. So I chose French because I was like, why would I learn a dead language? I mean, no, I really like Latin, but yeah, so I picked French, and then a year after that, I started learning Spanish because I just realized that I really like languages, and so I had 4 years of French and 4 years of Spanish classes in school.
That's awesome. I learned Arabic because I lived in an Arab-speaking
Mm.
country, and then when I came back to the U.S., I had the option of like, when you have a bunch of languages that you can do, so there's Spanish, and my
Mm.
school offered Arabic, and so I just took
Oh,
Arabic because it
cool.
was the easy way out. And now I really regret not taking like Spanish or French or anything. So
Hmm.
it's nice to see that you were able to kind of benefit from you know the school, even though I know a lot of people are like, oh, school is boring, but if you get to spend like 8 years learning languages, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I don't really think that learning languages in school really worked out all that well for me. Kind of had some trouble with the teachers, so then I absolutely hated French. So I think I dropped out of French class in ninth grade, and then I was like, I'm never going to speak French ever again. And I really hate it. I absolutely hated French. I'm at a point now where I do like French, and I would like to kind of react knowledge at some point, and I do still understand a good deal of French. But I really regret just neglecting that language. I really wish I wouldn't have had that conflict with the teacher. And then for Spanish, it was kind of the same. Like after I graduated, I was like, okay, I'm done now. No more Spanish. Because I was really into Japanese at the time and I didn't really want to do anything else. So that I kind of neglected that too. So I feel like I don't know, when you're at that age, you don't necessarily make use of the opportunities that you're given. I feel like that's really natural. And I really kind of wish that there would have been more choices to, choose from. Because in German schools, it's usually just French and Latin. Spanish is like an exception already, so most schools don't
Oh, okay.
necessarily offer Spanish. It's usually always just French or Latin. And then if you want to do Spanish, you have to do like a specific pathway through school. Like it's to choose it, and then you can't do, for example, science. Like you can't focus on science. So it's kind of, yeah, just a trade-off. And then there are like no other languages. So I know that, God, there's like this type of school, kind of, well, it's got a lot of stereotypes attached to it. It's called Waldorfschule. And I know someone who went there and he was able to learn Russian, which I thought was really cool, but because I've never heard of a German school before that offered Russian. And like at our school, no other languages were offered. In one of the schools, so I changed schools often, but at one of the schools I was at, there was going to be a Swahili course.
What?
Which I wanted to take. Yeah, I thought that was so cool. It was like an after-school program, and I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. And I signed up for it, but then not enough people signed up for it, and then it just didn't happen. And I was so disappointed because I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. I mean, where else would you get to just learn Swahili? I don't know.
I know, right?
That was such an interesting opportunity. I'm really sad it didn't happen. And also just like other languages, I wish there would have been, I don't know, maybe Mandarin Chinese or something. There's just, I don't know, just French, Spanish, if at all, and Latin. And that's literally it.
Yeah, I mean that's still even more than here. That's
I mean,
I'm still stuck with the Swahili story. Sorry, it's like that's so interesting. Why Swahili? You
I
know?
know, it's very extraordinary. Like, I think it was because, so in Germany, sometimes you have these kinds of, not necessarily language schools, but they're like schools anyone can attend and you can learn different skills there. So I can't really think of anything, like maybe knitting. Like knitting, and then they offer some language classes. And if they happen to have a teacher who is from, I don't know, like a country that speaks X language, then they might be they might be giving courses for that specific language. And I think that was the case there. And I think our school kind of partnered up with like, it's called Volkshochschule, the VHS. And they wanted to do, Swahili classes at our school. But yeah, as I said, it just
Okay.
didn't happen.
So you knew you were interested in language like very early on, right?
Yeah, I think around 6th or 7th grade, I was like, oh, I really like languages. Before that, I was never really that into learning languages. I gotta be real, I really hated English when I was younger. In Germany, I don't know how they do it now. I think they start even earlier than they did when I was a kid, but starting from 3rd grade, you have to take mandatory classes. So elementary school is from 1st to 4th grade in Germany. So you have to take English classes in 3rd and 4th grade, but that's basically just like learning nouns or learning colors and stuff. So you could maybe say the sky is blue, and that would be it. So I barely even count that. But then starting from 5th grade on, you have to like study grammar and all that. And I really did not like that at all. I thought that was so boring. I hated learning vocabulary. We had to like write vocabulary flashcards, like actual paper cards, and I hated that. And like the teacher would check if we'd written our cards and like if we'd done our studying, and I really didn't like
Wow.
that at all. I thought that was awful. I just thought it was so boring. I honestly, I couldn't tell you like a single grammar rule, like name for an English tense, maybe like simple past, simple future or something. I forgot all of that because I just didn't care about it.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, I really didn't like that, but I knew that I liked languages, so that's why I chose Spanish. I mean, I didn't have a choice with French or Latin. You have to take a second
Mm-hmm.
foreign language, but Spanish I thought was gonna be kind of interesting, so that's why I went for it. And after that, I knew that I did like languages.
What language did you study a language in college, or did you
I
just do it
I
on your own?
I did everything on my own. I mean I just I didn't even really go to college. I went to university for 3 semesters, but I studied mathematics and physics. And then actually, okay, I did a semester of English philology and linguistics, but I don't know, that wasn't too interesting. I'm not really into linguistics, gotta be real. I feel like a lot of people in the language learning community are linguistics students and just really like linguistics, but I didn't think it was too interesting. Um, but yeah, I did all of my language studying by myself. I have never taken a language class outside of school, and I'm not really planning on doing that either, so kind of non-traditional there.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm a little similar to you, but actually, I'm the exact opposite. I started learning languages later on. So, like, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago when I decided I was going to start, like, when I
Hmm.
figured out, oh, wait, learning languages is cool. Because, kind of like you, I learned Arabic when I was younger. And I
Hmm.
didn't really think too much about it. Like, I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. I just kind of had to do it because you live in a country where people speak the language, you just speak the
Yeah.
language. And then yeah, I didn't really want to learn Spanish, but then when I started learning Korean, I was like, okay, this is cool. And I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm just going to learn Korean. And I'm like,
Hmm.
wait a second, I can learn more languages. And then slowly I was like, okay, let me just get my Korean to a better spot and then focus on other languages because I had a lot of international friends. Like in the US, there's a lot of people from different countries. And I just didn't, like, I never tried to communicate with them in their language or anything like that. But then once I started learning Korean and talking to people in Korean, I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. And so, like, my Chinese friends, I would start speaking to them or try to speak to them in Mandarin. They would tell me like a few words here and there. They would, lie to me and tell me a curse word. And then, I would be like, how are you? Thinking I'm saying, how are you? And saying a curse word. And they just like giggle and whatnot. And, it's just all in like playful spirit. And I remember one time I was at my Chinese friend's house, and he was making some food or something. He was preparing the food, and he was doing it in such a like weird and clumsy way. And so I was telling him like, look, just use the those mittens that you use to grab something hot.
Hmm.
So I was telling him, dude, just grab the mittens. They're right next to you. And his mom was there. She doesn't know any English. And so she said the
Hmm.
same thing in Mandarin. I don't know if that's what she said, but I'm pretty sure that's what she said. Like it was pretty obvious. And we just looked at each other and we both laughed because we both don't understand a word we said, but we both know we're just telling the her son what to do.
Hmm.
And then I was like, wow, communication can be in like a bunch of different ways. And that's when I was like, okay, I really want to like be able to communicate in different languages. And so I started a little bit with Japanese. I dabbled a little bit in Mandarin. Recently, I started dabbling in Spanish.
Hmm.
I used to be the kind of person who doesn't touch a language until he's kind of done with the previous language. But then I was like, yeah, why not? Actually, Clubhouse made it even worse, where I would just go into
Oh, yeah.
random Turkish rooms or German rooms or Spanish rooms and just like try to understand a little bit. French rooms, ask questions. Um, are you on Clubhouse by any chance?
Oh, I do have the app. I actually deleted it the other day
Oh,
because I
okay.
just don't see myself like I listen in like to a couple of rooms, mostly just like Russian people talking about. So there are like a few Russian YouTubers that I was following on Clubhouse, and they're like having political discussions because that's what I'm into. And so I was listening to that, but I just didn't see myself entering a room with the intention of speaking to anyone.
Hmm.
So eventually I realized, like, I don't know, there's not really much point in being on there, especially because my phone has literally like no storage left. So something had to go. And I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
okay, Clubhouse getting the axe. Sorry. But yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely the type of person that's learning languages, not necessarily to interact with other people. I've always been very mm, well, I'm not necessarily. Oh, okay, no, I'm definitely an introvert, but I do have some extrovert traits. Like I really do like talking to people, but I'm extremely shy. I was super nervous before this interview type
Oh.
thing as well. So I was like, oh my god, I have to talk to someone. Um, but then when I'm like, right now I'm talking and it's really fun. Like I like listening to you talk about your own experience and stuff. So that's what I like. But I just I never really learned languages to talk to other people. I mostly just learn languages because I feel like there are so many interesting things out there that they allow you to understand. Like in it, if you understand something in the original language that it was like written or whatever, recorded in, then I feel like you're getting much more out of it than if you, for example, just read the translation or, just like you're watching something with the dub or, I don't know. The
1 second.
Sure.
All right, sorry about that.
No problem. But yeah, so my whole the whole reason I just wanted to learn languages, I wanted to understand things without needing to translate them or needing like kind of middlemen. So, because one of my defining moments when I decided that I was going to learn English, because I didn't like it at school, but at some point I was like, I really like English music, and I was always like looking up
Mm-hmm.
translations for English songs. And there was this one time where I was looking up Billy Talent lyrics. And the song goes like, "I used to be your lapdog, now I'm just a stray." And I saw the translation, and I was like, no, I want to try translating it myself. And so lapdog is that's two words, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know it was two words, so I translated lap, and I translated dog, and I got something really weird out of it because lap I translated it as like the lap that you run, and then dog just dog.
Oh.
So it didn't make any sense to me. I was like, what are they singing about? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So I think like that was the moment when I was like, okay, I want to be able to understand this without having to use Google Translate or whatever. And that's when I really started learning English seriously. And that's kind of just how I felt every single time after that. I wanted to be able to just understand without to look up the words, without having to rely on someone else to tell me what's going on, what was said, what was written there. So that's why I'm learning languages ultimately.
Okay. What's your favorite song in English? Just out of curiosity.
My favorite song,
In English, yeah.
uh, God, I don't know. I'd have to. I feel like I have a lot of favorite songs.
Oh, okay.
Uh, awful. I wouldn't be able to tell you a single favorite song. I'm so sorry. I
No,
like a lot of. I listen to a lot of music, so it's
that's all
definitely very.
good. Yeah, so you used to listen to English music like very young, very early on.
Yes. I think it all started with my dad because my dad was really into like Coldplay and stuff. So, one of my first favorite bands was definitely Coldplay. But then I started listening to like more like rock stuff. So I liked Green Day, I liked Sum 41, Billy Talent, Blink
Okay.
182, and I was I think yeah in like seventh grade when I was listening to that. And I still really love these bands. I've actually been listening to a lot of Sum 41 recently. It's a very nostalgic feeling because that was like my I don't know my favorite band. Um, and yeah, it's been making me think a lot about how I was learning English and how I'm learning languages right now. Because even though I had to take classes, like English classes at school, obviously, I didn't really like them too much. And I don't think that I got that much out of them. I think that like most of my learning actually took place outside of school because I was always using English to read manga translations actually. So it's kind of funny that because I just said like I didn't want a middleman, I just wanted to be able to do
Mm-hmm.
stuff in a native language. But I was reading a lot of English like translations of manga, and that's pretty much how I learned English. Like I learned English mostly through immersion, like reading. So eventually, when I was older, I was like, wait, I should just skip the English and I should learn Japanese so I can
Mm-hmm.
read manga in Japanese. And yeah, that's when I started learning Japanese. I think that was in 2012 maybe, 2011-ish. So yeah, that was a long time ago.
And then kanji happened, and you were like, okay, maybe reading in English is a little simpler.
Well, it was not necessarily that. It was basically I just didn't really have the tools to teach myself the language at that age because I was 13 or something.
Oh,
And
okay.
back then, I mean, obviously right now, I think right now language learning online isn't a really good place because you can like Google like language resources and you'll find something, or you can buy something, or you find like communities that deal with that kind of stuff. But when you're 13
Mm-hmm.
and like on the internet, you don't necessarily find these things. So I remember buying like I think Genki.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, I hated Genki. That was awful. It's so boring. I would never. I see like every time I see people talk about Genki and like pictures, and it's so expensive too. It's like $50. So every time I see people buy that book, I'm like, oh god, you poor soul. Like I hated that. I sold it after like a couple of weeks because I just didn't like it. Kanji weren't that bad. I was subscribed to WaniKani, if you know that. I think it's still around actually. Um, so I was learning kanji on WaniKani back when it was in, I think, in its alpha or beta phase. And I actually kind of like that, but I mean, I've since moved on and just realized that it's not necessarily for me anymore. But yeah, I was learning kanji, and I think my main problem was that I just didn't really know how to teach myself grammar, and I thought that that was just a hindrance. Like my comprehension got better and better because I was like reading manga in Japanese, and like learning the kanji and learning vocabulary. But I struggled to form my own sentences, and I thought that that meant that I was just bad at learning languages, and that I was just bad at Japanese, and that I would never learn it. And then I think like 3 years later, in like 2015, I just got so busy with like real life that I eventually stopped, and like, yeah, never really picked Japanese back up again until sometime last year, but that didn't last long either because I was really busy. And then I think 2 weeks ago now, I really got back into that again. But my approach is completely different now, so I wonder how that's gonna go.
How has your approach changed from like when you were younger? What are you sort of doing different now?
Mm, well, back then I thought that I had to produce language. I thought that was a necessary part. That's why I was so upset that I like after like 2 or 3 years I just couldn't really speak. I mean, obviously I didn't have the opportunities to really make a lot out of what I was learning.
Mm-hmm.
But I've since realized that immersion is really the most important thing when it comes to learning languages. And I think I was getting a lot of gems, and I could understand, even after like 2 to 3 years, I could understand manga. I could read fantasy manga stuff and
Mm-hmm.
understand them well enough, which I think was it was such a good achievement, and I feel sad that I didn't realize it at the time. And now, I've realized that that's really like the main important thing when it comes to language learning, because that's how I learned English. I mean, I had like a basic understanding of grammar because of school, and
Mm-hmm.
I had I don't know, obviously knew enough vocabulary to like read manga translation stuff. But every time I came across a word, an English word that I didn't know, I'd look it up, and I never like made a flashcard or anything. I never wrote anything down, and literally never did any sort of traditional studying when it came to English. Um, I would just look up the word on Google, and then I would go on reading. And that's just, I realized that if I could do that with English, and I basically did the same thing for the most part with Japanese and with Russian too. I've never, I talked about this earlier on Twitter. I've
Mm-hmm.
never taken any grammar notes or anything in Russian. I've never written anything down. And I think right now Russian is probably my best foreign language, aside from English, which I don't really count, but yeah, probably my best foreign language. And I've never really traditional studying that most people do, or that I see most people.
Yeah,
So that's
I
oh
heard
no, no, go on.
your voice tweet in Russian,
Hmm.
and I was like, wow, that's really good. I don't speak Russian,
Hmm.
but I have like family who are from Russia, so like I know what it sounds like, and I was like, wow, this is really good for someone who never touched like a just like through immersion, I guess is what you were saying, right?
Yeah, so I do have so God, I have this problem, and I think this is a big problem in the language learning in general, which I don't think I should touch upon that, but consumerism. So I own a lot of textbooks. Like a lot of them. I picked up most of them secondhand, or when I was in Russia, but um, I barely ever touched them because even though I like them and I like having them on my shelf, they look nice. I just don't enjoy
They look
working with
nice.
them. Yeah, I realized, like, I recently had this revelation. I was like, I really hate sitting down studying grammar and stuff. It's really not
Mm-hmm.
fun. I mean, some parts are enjoyable. Like, I have a couple of books. For example, I have this B2 C1 Russian reading book that's like for academic reading, like high level reading, and I think it's fun reading for that because it shows me that I still have a long way to go. Because I remember reading this text on, like, I think geology or something, and I was like, oh, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means. Wow, I don't really know anything about this topic. So I thought that was fun, but that was fun because I could just read and, just learn something new. But if it's about, I don't know, like I have, oh God, I have a, not necessarily a vendetta against, but God, I really, really hate the tutor, like teach yourself, and then they have like the tutor series, so like Russian tutor, Spanish tutor, I don't know, French tutor. So I
Like the
own.
italki thing, or like a book that
Uh,
teach
it's a
yourself.
book.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
book from Teach Yourself. It's called like Russian Tutor and
Oh, okay.
Tutor and so on. So I own Spanish, French, and Russian Tutor. And I have to say I don't like a single one of them. I should honestly sell them because I don't even know why I have them. Just the Spanish one is the worst one. But I remember I picked up the Russian one and I tried, like, because it says it's for like advanced beginner something. And I picked it up and I was like, okay, I don't understand any of this. And then I went somewhere else to kind of learn the basic grammar. And then I eventually got back to it. And I was like, now I already know all of this. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It wasn't for me. And I actually saw someone on YouTube make a video about it. They're like, I don't understand any of this. I don't really like this book. It's like, it gives you the super basic grammar, but the exercises that go along with it are really difficult. So it's like it teaches you the cases, and then it wants you to write like a 400, I don't know, 400 word text. And if you haven't even learned the cases, how are you
Mm-hmm.
going
Yeah.
to write a 400 word text? It's just not realistic. So I don't really like the way they're constipated. Um, the Spanish one is even worse. It's the most boring thing I've ever read in my life. God, it was so bad. Honestly, God, it's so mind-numbingly boring. And I just recently realized that I'm never gonna put myself through that ever again. I'm never gonna, like, study just for the sake of studying ever again. If I really realized that if I just pick up the basic, like, just basic grammar, and you can do that online for free. You can
Mm-hmm.
read through like grammar guides, and then you can start with like immersion. And when you don't understand something, you look it up. You don't need to know super high level grammar structures when you're just starting out. It's just gonna sit in your head, and you're not gonna use it. And you probably, even if you come across it, you might not even understand it, even though you have this theoretical knowledge in your head. You
Yeah.
probably won't be able to apply it when you, like, come upon it in real life. So I just realized, like, what's the point? Like, what's the point? And this is the thing. So I recently reactivated my Instagram account, and I actually deactivated it today because I just couldn't take it. I feel like a lot of the study community, not necessarily just language, and not necessarily only on Twitter, Instagram, but everywhere, a lot of the study community is very consumerist. It's always about buying the newest, fanciest, best textbooks. It's always about having like a super pretty shelf with tons of books, and then like the super pretty desk with like beautiful notebooks and beautiful pens and beautiful handwritten grammar notes. And I just I don't, you don't have to spend money to learn a language. And I
I
feel
agree.
like a lot of kids, not kids, but teenagers think that they have to buy these textbooks to learn a language, and they have to invest all of this money. That they have to save up and like buy these books, otherwise they're not going to learn the language. I think that's very sad. I've actually seen people be sad that they can't buy these books, and
Aw.
it's just, you don't need these books, girl. You can learn the language without
Yeah.
these books. Uh, and so I really, that's what I really don't like. I honestly need to fix this habit in myself. Honestly, I decided yesterday that I'm gonna sell a bunch of my books because I even have books for languages that I'm probably never gonna seriously study. For example, like Latvian or Norwegian or God, what else do I have? I mean, I used to seriously study Finnish, so I still have these books, but I might as well get rid of them because I don't see myself ever getting back to that. And just it's just taking up space. I paid money for it. I should just sell it.
You're
I
the
don't
second person I've interviewed that's also studied Finnish. That's just I find that quite a coincidence. But
know.
Becky from like the language learning community.
Yeah, of course, of
Yeah,
course.
she studied Finnish when she was younger.
Oh, I actually didn't know that. It's funny.
Yeah, I think she had a Finnish friend and she was into the music or something, and
I
so she
had a
studied it.
Finnish friend as well. That's why I started learning Finnish.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I had a Finnish friend, and I was like, oh, Finnish is so well. Actually, even before that, I thought Finnish was interesting. And then actually, at that time, I wasn't learning a language at all. So that was in I think in summer, spring 2018. I wasn't learning any language at that point. So I was like, oh, Finnish sounds really interesting. So I think I studied Finnish seriously for like 7 months, and then things got really bad with that friend. Really strange. And
Aw.
then I kind of fell out with the language as well because it reminded me of that person. And now I still have these books sitting there on my shelf. And I think Finnish is really cool. I always thought that was very interesting. That is so different from all the other European languages, of course, except for Estonian and kind of Hungarian. But it's so cool that it's not related to any of the other European languages. So that always stood out. But yeah, at this point, I don't think I'm ever going to devote that kind of time to it again, and it's just really difficult. So you really need to invest some time and effort, brain power in that, and I just don't see myself doing that ever again, which is sad, but it's just how it is. You have to kind of decide on what your priorities are.
Yeah, there's too many languages to pick from.
Yeah.
Actually, if I could show you the stack of language books that I have, I don't have a single one like that's specific to a language. I have some like, this is the science behind how the brain works and whatnot, and I consider those like language learning books, but not about a language. I don't know. I just feel like I'm kind of like you, whereas if I'm gonna learn something for fun, I'm not gonna buy a book about it. Like I don't buy books about rock climbing or swimming or any of like the sort of sports that I do. If I want to learn, I'll probably watch like a video series or whatnot, or maybe even take a course. But I wouldn't necessarily buy a book, and especially with like languages, because most of the stuff is like available online, and if you just study vocab and grammar, like that's not fun. And I don't really like. You don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy it. I'm pretty sure there are people who enjoy it and they do it, and
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
awesome. But I mean, I don't really enjoy it. I don't think there's if it's a hobby, it should be fun, and I like to do it in like the most fun way, which is I try to find the things that I enjoy in the language. So for Korean, webtoons like comics,
Oh,
I
same.
yeah, I just read a whole bunch of them. Like I just at some point I would have to be like, okay, I can't read more than an hour a day. It's just taking too much time because I love it, and it's in Korean. I don't understand half the words that come in because it's all fantasy, and my vocab now is just fantasy words. But hey, it works, and that's the same thing with Japanese, and like even with Korean, like I like chess, so I try to watch chess videos in Korean or like interact with the chess community in Korea and whatnot, and just make it my sort of my own language and have fun with it. So yeah, I don't own any textbooks, and it strikes me very. It's very peculiar how a lot of people are like buying 4 or 5 textbooks for the same language, so that they can go through all of them. And I just think, like, aren't they going to go over, like, basically the same topic? Sure, one of them might be better than the other, but, like, you can just go to YouTube or go online, find a bunch of articles about, like, the basic, 6 grammar forms you need to know, learn them, start using them, and then by the end of the month, like, at this, you probably have more active comprehension of the language than if you went through a book and didn't really practice it. So, I don't know, I don't understand. It's not that I don't think having a book can be good. Like recently, I started to appreciate graded readers So like
Oh, yeah.
readers that are, yeah, in the level that you're sort of reading. Um,
Hmm.
and like I read the whole science behind it and how it improves your language learning capabilities. And I'm like, okay, this is really good, but it's still like, or I could just read something that's more fun and not really my level. It's higher than my level, but it's fun. And I seem to tend to go to the more fun than the, hey, this is the best bang for your buck. This is what's going to help you improve the most.
Yeah,
Because I,
yeah. What I think what I used to be guilty of as well, and that's a big thing. It's like trying to find the best thing, like trying to find the one textbook that is the absolute best. That's gonna make you like learn so much faster than all the other ones, and then you buy like a bunch of books. But the thing is, it's so much smarter to just buy a book if you want to buy a book, and just go through it and then just I don't know, like do something else or like maybe pick the next book then just buy like five beginner books and try to see which one's the best. You don't need the best to learn. I think I don't remember who said it, but I actually read it the other day because I reread Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he included that quote. It's like the perfect well, I noticed perfect is the enemy of good, but I think it was like the best is the enemy of good. So if because there are some people that, and again, I used to be guilty of that as well, um, that feel the need to find the best, and they'd rather not do anything than like settle for something that they feel is not the best. And I feel like that's what motivates a lot of people to always like buy a lot of textbooks. And also, I just again consumerism. It feels good to buy things. It gives your brain serotonin. Actually, it even happens twice when you buy something online. When you click on the button, your brain's like yay, and it gives you serotonin. And then when it arrives at your doorstep, you get serotonin again. So that's why
mm,
so many people get this like online shopping habit because it makes your brain feel good twice. So it's really dangerous. But yeah, I just um I I I totally agree. I have a couple of textbooks that I'm definitely not gonna get rid of because they target very specific skills. As I said, I have this like two C1 Russian like reading thing that prepares you for the C1 um language test, which I would like to take at some point because I would like to have the qualification to maybe work in Russia. And along those same lines, I have a book on business correspondence in Russian, which I think that's such a specific skill that you wouldn't be able to pick it up through immersion because where are you going to be able to immerse in
mm-hmm,
business correspondence? Like nowhere. So I think those kinds of books are fine, but having like 10 different beginner level textbooks that all teach you the same thing, as you said, is just so pointless. And I think that there are so many really great resources, free resources out there. For example, for Mandarin, I really love the Chinese grammar wiki. I think it's one of the best grammar resources out there, and just access it for free. You can just, I actually, what I was doing. I have a Chinese beginner textbook. It's the, I think, God, new something Chinese reader, new practical Chinese reader. It was so boring. I did the first chapter and I hated it. And it's so funny because I used to force myself. I used to think that I had to do that if I wanted to learn the language. I had to go through that. And I felt like I couldn't progress if I did not do that. And so I would just stall and just like procrastinate. I didn't
mm-hmm,
feel like doing it because it was really boring. God, it seriously is. That was and this book is so beloved in the community. I see so many people use these kinds of textbooks, and I just find it so awful. And it's just I don't know. Sometimes I feel like something's wrong with me, but recently I already knew that there was a immersion learning community. I think it all started with AJAT. I mean, obviously, it might
mm-hmm,
have been around before that, but I think like AJAT was the first thing. So all Japanese all the time. And then obviously one of the most prominent figures in the immersion learning community is Matt versus Japan. And
mm-hmm,
so he kind of had this whole MIA mass immersion approach thing, and that was mostly people learning Japanese. So at the time, I wasn't necessarily interested in that. Also, these people were sometimes displaying absolutely cultish behavior. and they would jump on
Oh,
you if you said.
really?
And yes, like on Twitter, they would like jump on you if you said anything about immersion. They would just like go off, and it was so weird. I really didn't like that. It really put
Mm,
me off. But a couple of months ago, Matt versus Japan kind of rebranded because he split with the person he was kind of pairing up with before. He was doing mass immersion. So they split, and he's doing something called Refold now, and the other person's doing something called Migaku, and so they both have their own business now. So yeah, I've been reading a lot on Refold again, like these past 1.5 weeks. And I think that he really managed to rebrand very well. So he now talks a lot about immersion learning, but not just Japanese, but like all of the languages. And he has this roadmap laid out, which I thought was very interesting. I definitely, if you haven't checked it out, you should. You might want to give it a read. It's very interesting. Mm. So I really realized that I'm never going to put myself through this boring textbook stuff ever again if I can avoid it. I have some interesting Japanese textbooks. I do like the Shinkansen Master series. They have, for example, they have a grammar explanation in all Japanese, which I think monolingual instruction is very valuable, especially at the higher level. Um, so these are interesting, but aside from that, I'm never gonna force myself to do a boring translation exercise ever again. I, I used to feel so burned out when it comes to language learning because I used to force myself to do things that I didn't enjoy instead of doing things that I do enjoy, which is so weird. Like, well, how does the human brain just do that? I don't know. So just recently, I've just been watching a lot of stuff, listening to a lot of stuff, podcasts, TV shows, and I've been enjoying language learning again because I realized that I don't have to find the best thing. I can just learn a language through watching stuff and words I don't know, and maybe putting them to my Anki, and just enjoying myself. And I feel like
yeah.
that's what a lot of people don't do. I feel like a lot of people are really focused on this kind of very traditional textbook vocabulary list stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
whenever I see someone like write vocabulary lists, I shudder. I'm like, oh my god, why are you doing that to yourself? Um, I feel like a lot of people are just doing it to do it, just studying to study. They're just like doing it to be productive, even though it doesn't necessarily provide with anything. It's kind of you're keeping up this very productive image of yourself, especially on like Instagram, like Studygram. Uh, that I thought that was just I find that such a toxic environment because like everyone's always just like showing how productive they are, how many chapters of grammar study they did that morning. I God, that's so exhausting.
I should make
I
a
don't know. I don't
studygram where I show my absolutely horrible handwriting with writing a very unclear green pencil and having no books and my vocabulary list. So it's gonna make you shudder, but I have a vocab list for Korean and it's just the Korean word and no context, nothing. I heard it, I asked what it was. They said, "Oh, this is what that means." Okay, I wrote down the word and then I move on with my life. And then every now and then I'll be like, "Oh, I remember, like, I want to use that word." And then I'll go through the list of, like, it's just a notebook of pages of just, like, literally random words. Like, I have kumson, I have makjang, I have,
know.
um, paguni, like, just random words from, like, dating, like, years back. And I think I know the meanings of most of them now, but sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, I remember in that situation I heard that word. Let me go find it." And then I'll find, "Oh, kumson, that's what it was." And then I'll say it.
Oh,
But
I know I just ragged on like productivity and efficiency, but I find that so so not efficient because okay, I've been using Anki for a very long time now. I started using Anki I think at 15 with like for Japanese, and I never stopped being an like proponent of Anki. I'm like the Anki person on Twitter. I've even helped people like set up cards and set up like uh God, I don't like card types, like basically like what it's gonna display, what it's gonna look like. Um, and I feel like if you just if you would have added these words to like a spaced repetition system program,
mm-hmm.
you wouldn't have to like go through like pages and pages of a notebook to like find them again.
Yeah, but
So
that's
that
boring.
I don't know. I mean, so I used to when I started learning Russian. I would do like my Anki vocabulary, and I would write out like by hand every single word that I would go through, and that took forever. But I think it was one of the greatest things I did, like when I, for a beginner, because Russian spelling is really hard. There are a couple of like letters in Russian that are very hard to grasp for a beginner because they, for example, there's the like soft sound and hard sound, and the soft sounds, it softens the consonant before it. And if you're not like if your ears aren't used to what that sounds like, you don't hear it. So when you hear the word, you don't know how it's spelled because it might have a soft sign. So that's why I was,
Mm.
and that helped me so much because I could like suddenly actually remember what words were spelled. Like I remember I was doing memrise
Mm-hmm.
Russian at the very beginning, and there were a couple of words that I just couldn't remember how they were spelled. I would hear them like 10, 20 times. I just couldn't remember how they were spelled. It was so difficult. But as soon as I started writing a lot, and then I would also go on train my handwriting because I write in Russian cursive. I would take stories from a great reader and I would just write them out. Like every morning, I would sit down at my desk and like just write in Russian for 30 minutes. And I think that really helped me. So I think that was a really good thing to do. So I'm like not ragging on writing things down in general. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even complaining, saying anything about learning words out of context because that's what I did pretty much past couple of years. I am not. I only just recently started making sentence cards. I was always like a person who just learned words out of context. If I saw them somewhere and they were interesting, then I would just add them Anki card. Maybe I would put like an example sentence on there, but or at least I always tried. But I would always do like just like one word on one side and then the English translation on the other side, and then swap them.
I
Um,
never liked that, like
but
out of
I
context. Mm. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I just that was fine. I just I was just lazy. I feel like because that was always like the traditional way that I thought this worked, and I was too lazy to make sentence cards. It's still God, I made it today. It's a very that's something that I don't like about immersion. I find creation of sentence cards in Anki very bothersome, especially if I add like, audio to it. But I feel like in this case, this is more like a necessary evil. In Russian, I'm not really doing much because I am kind of beyond that already.
Mm-hmm.
Um, many time, like most of the time, when I come across a word that I don't know, for example, when I'm listening to a podcast, I don't have to look it up, so I'm not gonna make a card out of it because if I
Mm-hmm.
just understand it from context, I'm not gonna add it to Anki. But for Japanese, now that I'm restarting, I'm gonna try and I don't know keep that habit, but I feel like that's gonna be the most difficult part because I just don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's not as bad as like sitting down studying with a textbook. So I think
I
I'll
know,
do
right?
it.
Yeah, I can handle that. Yeah, for I'm actually getting into Japanese now. I'm like practicing reading and whatnot.
Mhm.
And like I plan on doing the same sort of thing where it's like for the first basically up until I get to intermediate level, I'm probably not gonna write any words down because
Mhm.
the words that I'm learning are probably really common, which means I'm going to hear
Yes.
them a lot and I'm going to see them a lot, which means I'm going to have a lot of exposure to them, so I don't really need to write them down. But then once I get to a level where like I'm learning random words like skeleton, that might not be a word I run into often. I might just write down the word in Japanese and then move on. And then when I need to remember that word, I know it's on that list that I have. It's not the most efficient way. I'm sure if I have a deck and I on Anki, it's better. But like I don't know. I tried. I downloaded Anki onto my computer, and then I tried to use it, and it didn't let me do what I wanted to do. I didn't know how to do what I wanted to do, and I was like, "Yep, never mind," and I uninstalled it, and I've never used it again. Um, so I just have a notebook with just a bunch of words
Oh,
that all don't relate to each other, but I remember the context of every one because I wrote them down.
okay. I mean that's cool. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean that works the same way for me with Anki. I add words because most of the time I kind of know where I got them from, especially
Mm-hmm.
because I'm into very specific. I really like politics, for example. So if I find like a word that's related to that, I'm like, okay, I got that from that news article about X, Y, Z. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can remember that
exactly.
kind of. But I just Also, this is really random. I just thought this was that was really funny because you said Anki, and then
Oh,
in the
yeah.
next sentence you said Anki because I say Anki, and everyone else says. I'm pretty sure that everyone else says Anki. So I think you're the one who's in the right, but I've always just said it like that. And this is the kind of thing that happens though when you learn a language mostly through like reading immersion. There are a lot of English words that over the years I realized I didn't really know how they sounded because I only learned them like in their written form, and English is notorious for its like like
Yeah.
difference between like how a word is spelled and how it's pronounced. So I just in my head it was always Anki. I think I also said, the word fam, like what's up fam?
Uh-huh.
Um, for the first, I don't know, like first year or so, I think I said fum because that's the way I would have. But that's the way I said it in my head. And then I heard someone say it. I was like, oh my god, I've learned this wrong for the past year. Why did no one ever tell me? So yeah, I've had a lot of these moments. So I think that's what's really important to combine like listening and reading immersion. Even though I like reading a lot more than listening, um, it was really like very obvious to me that you have to. Otherwise, you're gonna embarrass yourself and pronounce a word like wrong, and everyone's gonna laugh at you. I think I had that happen. I don't remember what it was, but
Oh no. I've had that happen in Korean as well. Like I pronounce something and like, what did you just say? And then I say it again, oh, okay. I thought you said something else. But with Anki,
yeah.
it's funny because I used to say Anki too. And then I heard
Well,
people on like YouTube call it Anki, Anki, and I was like, all right, it's Anki. And then I said Anki right now, and then I was like, wait a minute, she said Anki. I'm just gonna go back to Anki. So I went back to
no,
Anki.
no. Actually, I just realized something. I think I just remembered this. Actually, the name comes from a Japanese word. Um, so I'm pretty sure it actually is Anki because in Japanese the R is pronounced R and not air. So
Uh-huh.
I actually think we're the ones in the right and the other
Yeah.
people are wrong. So yeah, everyone should say Anki. But yeah, I think it's always just, like very difficult with like brand names because, for example, you guys, I think you say Adidas, like
Mm-hmm.
for the brand Adidas, the three stripes
Yep.
sports brand. Um, but in German, and the brand is German, so in German we say Adidas, so the stress is on a different syllable.
That's how
And
they
I
say it
always
in the
thought that was
UK
just
as well. I think in when I
yeah,
was in
that's
London, they
where
say
I got that one from.
Adidas. It's like that's
Yeah,
strange.
so they're from us, and then the Americans are like Adidas. It
I'm
sounds like
sorry,
a whole different word.
we butchered
Um,
your brand name.
yeah, no, it's funny. I mean, there are a couple of other names. Oh, for example, I mean, Nike. So
Hmm.
German Nike, and then I was like, they say Nike, but
Wait, it's
where does Nike
Nike?
come? Yeah, no, I actually think Nike is an American brand, if I
Oh.
recall correctly. So we are the ones in the wrong here. But I was just very surprised because I feel like these kinds of like names that are not derived from any particular word are always so hard to interpret because I don't know, you don't have a reference
Mm-hmm.
like that you can orient yourself at. Like, how is that going to be pronounced? I don't know. I find these things kind of just very interesting. Like language is such a thing.
Yeah, it's like the GIF versus GIF. It's like
Oh,
okay.
it's totally GIF. It's totally GIF. If you say GIF, you're wrong. My colleague, my colleague said GIF. I was like, dude, it's not GIF. If you say GIF one more time, I swear.
You say gift, so why do you say GIF when you get rid of the T, right?
Yeah, I
That's
mean, yeah.
that's how I used to think. And then the person who made the GIFs wanted to call it
Uh-huh.
GIF. And it's like, come on, man, why'd you have to make it so
No
confusing?
way. No way. I mean,
Yeah.
where would you even get the J sound from if it's a G? Like, I mean, how many words with a G would you pronounce
I
with
mean, Jim.
J sound? Okay. Wow. Okay. No. Oh my God. I totally. Oh, I never would have. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it's confusing.
That's funny. That's languages. I mean, English is so bad when it comes to
I
pronunciation.
agree.
There are a lot of languages that are so much more predictable. Russian is really bad as well because for Russian the stress system for like syllables is very different from, for example, English and Spanish and German because in most of those languages the stress is kind of predictable. Like it's always on the same syllable for the most part, or just a similar syllable. But then in Russian, the stress can be literally pretty much on any syllable in the word, and you don't know it. And then there are like sound reduction rules. So, for example, when a certain letter comes after a stressed syllable, it's pronounced in reduced form and it sounds like a completely different letter, which I just, God, Russian, why? And then, for example, then when I like had that voice tweet, like when I posted that voice tweet the other day, um, the main comment that I got was like some of my stresses were slightly off. And it's
Hmm.
just, God, it's so difficult. It's literally so difficult because when you just see a word written down and you've never heard it before, sometimes you can guess the stress because it's similar to like the word is built in the same way that like of another word, you know. But some of the time you just don't know how it's going to be pronounced. It's like I see a word and I have some idea in my head, but then it turns out wrong. So that's always frustrating. And then you can sometimes when you say like when you use the wrong stress, it's a completely different word. For example, there are the words zamok and zamak, and one means castle and the other one means lock. They're spelled the exact same. Just the stress is on one the stress is on the first syllable, and the other one the stress is on the second syllable. So
Oh, that sounds
that,
fun.
yeah, so that's very frustrating about Russian. But I think English is still worse. I think English is a lot less difficult.
English is pretty bad, yeah. I have a fun question for you.
Sure. Go
If
ahead.
the Prime Minister of Germany came to you and he was like, hey, Nero, we're going to give you the perfect environment for you to study whatever language you want, what would that sort of environment be, and like, how would you go about your language learning?
Honestly, that would be pretty easy because they would just have to give me enough money to live off so I wouldn't have to work full time. And then I would just be, I don't know, probably just be at home, like doing immersion. Or I could go to that country and just, live there and just go about my life there, interact with the environment that is in that language. But mostly, I still think that just having a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
is the main thing when it comes to learning languages. Like having enough time to spend with your target language is just what's most important. So the more free time you have, the more progress you're going to make in a short amount of time. So I'm always kind of jealous of like students and like teenagers who
Mm-hmm.
have like so much free time. And I literally see people like I was watching a like guy on YouTube. He's called Not Satan. He has a very small channel and he's a Korean immersion learner. He was talking about how for a while he was studying like immersing in Korean for 10 hours a day. Well,
What?
because he was like on winter break from college. I was like, oh my God, I wish I was a college student.
I
Jesus.
know, right?
I wish I had that much free time.
I
But
miss
no,
this winter break, summer break, yeah.
yeah, I definitely looking forward to becoming a student again, even though I will have to work time. But working full time and trying to juggle your social life and your chores and whatever else you have to do and language learning and other hobbies is really important. I feel like the main problem that I have, like the main issue that I would need to fix, or I need the Prime Minister of Germany to fix. And I don't think we don't have a prime minister.
Wait, you don't have a prime minister?
they- well, not in the same way that other countries have. I mean, we have Chancellor, like
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Chancellor
Chancellor, that's what I
Merkel.
meant, yeah.
Yeah, and then we have like another guy. I'm actually not that great when it comes to German politics, but we have like this guy who's basically head of the Bundestag parliament, and
Mm-hmm.
he's technically he has more power, like more political power than Merkel. But she's like the face of Germany, like everyone knows her, and she's always attending these talks with other politicians from other countries. But anyway, um, I would just need more time, honestly. Like if they gave me enough money to live off every month, so I wouldn't have to work full time, then that would be enough, honestly. Maybe also like a VPN, cheap VPN,
A VPN.
so
you
so I wouldn't have to pay for a VPN.
Yeah, I
So I could
expected,
watch like, and that's all I need really. I don't think I'd need anything else. Time and maybe a bit of.
That's quite funny. You'd expect someone to be like, all right, now I can afford, these expensive tutors and this and that. And you're just like, food and a VPN sounds good.
And I mean food boarding and a VPN and my
Yeah.
internet. But I'll just basically what I have right now. If they just paid for like my living expenses every month, that would be enough, honestly.
That's
Um,
cool.
but yeah, on the topic of tutors, I actually think, and this is also in the like same vein as like immersion learning and like what Matt says in the whole Refold kind of roadmap thing. Um, Speaking is not that great when you're not very good at a language yet. Like if you should have a really high level of comprehension before you start speaking, and I definitely agree because I think that if you start speaking, and I know many people see this completely different, like they have completely different opinions on this. Because I mean, there are a lot of people out there who are basically just only focused on speaking, and they're like, you have to start speaking as early as possible, like from day on, like first day on. I see this. Like, my opinion is like the complete like 180 of that. I think you should delay until very late point in your studies because if you start speaking very early on, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and the more often you make these mistakes without someone um, correcting you, the more cemented they're going to become. Like the more likely you're going to be to like repeat them over and over and over again, and they're going to like build up really bad habits that you have that are going to be really really hard to break later on. So I wouldn't want a tutor like that. I wouldn't really see any value in that until I'm very good at a language, and then that's where you kind of want to start speaking because that's when your brain has developed more of an idea of what's right, like grammatically correct, wrong.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm the opposite from you. I think in terms of speaking, I think it's not about speaking, it's about fluency development, which means you learn something. You want to be able to use it. Because if you don't use it, you're just going to keep moving on, and then you're not never going to be able to use the things that you already know. So you can hear something, you can understand it, but then you can't make that same exact sentence for some reason. And I
But
think, go ahead.
but that's the thing. At some point, you are going to be able to do that. So as for me, I mean, we're speaking English right now, and I don't know how you would judge my English level to be. Like, would you say that I fluently speak English? Like, is my
Yeah.
English good?
Yeah, it's
So
phenomenal.
for the most part of my life, like for the longest part of my life, I never spoke any English. Like, I didn't even raise my hand in class because I couldn't be bothered. I basically never used my English. I only learned through immersion. I only spent my time reading and like listening, and I never said a word to a single living soul in English.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, I like got to know some people online, I think on Twitter, and they like so because I got into K-pop and I like had a K-pop Twitter, so I got to know people from the UK, and they kind of became my friend group, and that's when I started like speaking, like expressing my thoughts
Mm-hmm.
online in English. And prior to that, I basically never said like I never spoke English whatsoever. So I think at some point your brain is going to be able to produce language, correct, grammatically correct language, if you just kind of train your brain enough. So if you get enough input, at some point you're going to be able to produce output. But I mean, depending on how much input you get, it might take a long time. But I feel like eventually you do get there.
Yeah,
So that's
I
why.
don't think you're wrong. I think both ways are fine. I just think for a lot of people, like speaking is important because they want to be able to speak, and that's sort
Yeah.
of part of it. But like if you don't care to speak, like for me, Korean, I didn't really care to speak. I had like a couple
Hmm.
Korean friends, but that's pretty much it. So speaking was on the back burner. I did it like an hour a week maximum or something, versus reading, which I did all the time because webtoons awesome. So
Yeah.
obviously for me, immersion was a lot more kind of like you. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if I really want to speak the language, like let's say I wanted to do immersion in a language, I wouldn't, like if I were to move to Japan, for example, to learn Japanese, I wouldn't go there not knowing any Japanese. I would want to be at like a A2, B1 level first, and then go there and do the immersion because I think at least at that point I've practiced enough that I can at least, the things that I do know, I can say and people can understand it. Like I'm not speaking with a random accent. And I think that'll sort of facilitate easier or more efficient learning just by immersion. But I think both ways work. Like you said, it really doesn't matter how you do it. There is a best way, but who cares what the best way is? Just do what works for you.
Yeah, no. I just I I do agree. I think actually some people in the immersion community worry a bit too much about bad habits and that they pretty much never end up speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like that like there's not really any in that either. As you said, there might be a best. I mean honestly, I don't even think there is a best. I don't think best thing exists when it comes to human like brains, like because we're all kind of different. Like of course our brains more or less work the same, but
Mm-hmm.
I think there are always going to be differences like in the environment and just how you grew up and your genes and whatever. So I don't think there is the best way, but I think, as I said earlier, a lot of people are focusing on best and then they're not doing anything, and that's the biggest mistake you could possibly
Mm-hmm.
like
100% agree.
have to. It's like that saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today.
Mm-hmm.
It's like wait, actually, I don't think that applies. I think I was thinking of something else, but um, it's just like you're gonna regret not starting. Is basically what I'm trying to say. You're gonna regret waiting all that time, like trying to like I don't know, find the best thing and never doing anything, and then you're gonna realize at some point that oh, I could have spent these 20 years in the case of the tree, doing something, even if it's not the best, even if I didn't use the best, but I would have done something and I would have made progress. And yeah, I don't know. That's something that I'm still trying to learn myself because sometimes I just feel like I artificially hold myself back because I feel like I'm doing the best, the most effective
Mm-hmm.
thing. But it's just a habit you have to break. It's like a mental.
As Nike would say, just do it.
Exactly. That's very true. Now I thought of Shia LaBeouf. Just do it.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Something you wanted to touch upon, but you weren't able to? Anything you like thoughts you want to
Mm,
throw out there?
not necessarily. I feel like I already got out a lot of my thoughts. So a lot of the stuff I've recently been thinking about, that I didn't necessarily, I don't know, didn't say anywhere else. Like, okay, recently I've been talking a bit about immersion on Twitter, but that's been very tame because I feel like mm, community is very into the textbook, like writing pretty notes, kind of. It's like they're not necessarily stuck, but it's like the thing to do. So obviously, I don't want to worry about like losing followers and that kind of. But when you're kind of on a social media platform, you do think about that kind of thing sometimes. Sometimes I don't want to upset like the status. Don't want to necessarily get all my thoughts out there, but this was really nice. I mean, I feel like we had a really just fun conversation.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
definitely enjoyed it. It went into a lot of directions that I didn't think of, and then I was like, wait a minute, she has a point. Hold up.
I mean that's really great to hear. Like to think about things that they didn't necessarily think about before. What what greater thing you do for someone else than just a little bit?
Awesome. Yeah, like I said, my notes are chicken scratch, and I can't read my notes most of the times. So like
Save
I
my breath.
never I never got into like the whole taking pretty notes and like doing this and that and like having textbooks. So I would see that on my feed. I just ignore it.
I
I didn't
try. It's
realize.
so stressful. It's just so stressful. There's so much pressure on you that and I feel like it detracts from your learning experience. Kind
Hmm.
of put so much pressure on yourself to make your notes look pretty when you don't necessarily need to take any notes in the first place, and you don't to spend like the extra time that you spend on making your notes look super pretty and like Instagrammable. You could spend learning. You could spend like listening to podcasts or like watching a video, reading something. And yeah, I mean, some people are into that, but I just point. I don't.
Hmm.
It's so fake, so superficial. I don't like it.
So here's a question for you. We can end with this. I took a lot of your
All right.
time. Thank you so much for
No,
giving me this
it's been really
time.
fun. It's been really.
What? How often do you go back and look at your notes in any
Never.
language? Exactly,
Never.
exactly, exactly. That's why I
Yeah.
don't take
See,
notes.
exactly. Like that's something that I realized too. Like I've never, as I said, I never took any grammar notes in Russian, and I know that I would never refer back to them. I took notes in Japanese and in Chinese, and in Chinese I did actually refer back to them when I was kind of getting back into the language, and I thought they were helpful. Um, but that was like the only time. If I would just continuously study a language, I don't think I would need to review my notes, because if you like take notes about the like very basic grammar points, you're gonna be exposed to them every single day. Like the super basic stuff you're gonna see in every single like I don't know podcast, or like every single text you read, you're gonna come across that stuff. Why would you need to refer back to notes if you're
Mm-hmm.
literally exposed to it every single day? So I I from this day on, I told myself I am never gonna write grammar notes ever again. It's not fun. It's not useful. It's a waste of time, honestly. And yeah, just never gonna do that again. I'm free now. I'm
I'm
free.
free. I'm a bird.
Dobby's free.
Dobby's free.
Yeah.
That's
So
funny.
I think that a lot of other people would probably have given you the same answer, but they might have had to, come to that realization in that moment. Like a lot of people are very into writing notes, but they might not even realize that they never actually refer back to them. I think sometimes you really just get into the habit of doing something and you don't question it. Yeah, you don't think about whether it's good, whether it's productive, whether it actually brings you forward.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I don't know if anyone will listen to this to the very end, because we talk for a long time. But if they did, and if that person is still writing grammar notes and just realize that they literally never look at them ever again, then this is the sign, baby. You gotta stop writing those grammar notes.
It's fine.
Spend your
I'll
time.
clip this part out and then put it on Twitter just so people can see it.
All right. All right. Yeah. It's like, this is the sign people have been waiting for. You can be free. You can be a
You're
free elf
free.
like me too.
Yeah, this is the sock that'll free them.
Yes, exactly. You have permission. You have permission to stop writing those boring grammar notes and to stop doing boring translation exercises. It's okay. We're all gonna be okay.
It was awesome having you. Thank you so much.
It was really fun. It was great. I really enjoyed this conversation.
All right. If you ever have any other topic
Hmm.
you'd love to talk about, yeah, I'd love to hear from you again.
Hmm.
Um,
I've been thinking about going in a bit of a different direction with my own YouTube channel as well, so I might invite you on my channel at some point. So we
I
might
would love
be
to be on. That'd be an honor.
about that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was great.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.